Hello friends, hope all of you are doing well. Welcome back to Mains Answer Writing Basics program being conducted by India for IAS. In this Mains Answer Writing Basics program, we discuss question and answer approach to the UPSC mains questions. So far we have discussed the GS-1 paper 2024 mains GS-1 paper. So today we are going to start GS-2 paper first 5 questions. Here we are going to discuss first 5 questions of the GS2 paper and answer approach to the 5 questions. Along with this answer approach, we are also going to discuss what should be the major content which will fetch good marks for the following questions. After watching this video, aspirants should write answers to the first 5 questions and get the answers evaluated by your mentors. So the first question of the GS2 paper is as follows. Examine the need for electoral reforms as suggested by various committees with particular reference to one nation, one election principle. So the question is for 10 marks and the word limit is 150 words. The question it is asking the electoral reforms suggested by various committees over the period of last 1 or 2 decades and particular reference. So the question is particularly asking the suggestions made by various committees with respect to one nation, one election principle. Coming to the answer approach discussion for this question. So in the introduction, we should write or we should define what is one nation, one election principle. One nation, one election principle. This we should define in the introduction. So after defining it, then we should move to the electoral reforms suggested by various committees. So before going into the electoral reforms suggested by various committees, we should also briefly mention the need for electoral reforms in India. So what is the need for electoral reforms in India? So there were frequent elections and governance paralysis. Because of the frequent elections like panchayat elections, state elections and the Lok Sabha elections, the governance is hampering because of the imposition of the model code of conduct. The second point is huge financial cost. Conducting elections, it will require huge financial allocation by the central government to the Election Commission of India, be it MLA elections or MP elections. Then the third main reason is electoral malpractices like bribing voters, booth capturing, and the influence of money and muscle power. These are continued to plaguing the Indian elections. Reforms to curb such malpractices have been suggested by various committees. Then the fourth need is fragmented electoral process. The current electoral process, it leads to the perpetual perpetual election mode, where political parties are constantly in campaign mode because of the fragmented nature of elections. One or the other part in India, every year there will be elections. So this is creating an atmosphere of elections every time, every year in India. Then the third one, then the last one is voter fatigue, the fifth point. Voter fatigue means voters face multiple elections within a short span of time. General elections, state elections, local body elections, and also by elections. So this is leading to the voter fatigue and lower voter turnout in the subsequent elections. Now we will look into the committees and their suggested reforms. The first one is Dinesh Goswami Committee. It was constituted in the year 1990. So this recommended reforms in election expenses, strengthening the power of election commission and enhancing transparency in the electoral process. It also suggested setting up National Election Fund to curb the influence of black money in the elections. Then the second committee is Law Commission of India in its 170th report in the year 1999 suggested the simultaneous elections to the both Lok Sabha and state assemblies to reduce the time and cost involved in conducting multiple elections. So Law Commission is the first to propose one nation, one election. So in the year 1999 in its 170th report. Then the third Election Commission of India. So it advocated for the measures to ensure free and fair elections, including stricter laws to curb the money power, muscle power, and criminal elements in the elections. Then the fourth one is National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution. It submitted its report in the year 2002. It suggested a comprehensive review of the electoral process and also proposed reforms for reducing the impact of caste, religion, and regionalism in the elections. It highlighted the need for stricter laws to disqualify candidates with criminal records and to enhance the internal democracy within the political parties. Then Niti Aayog in the year 2017 submitted a report, and it also strongly endorsed the one nation, one election principle. And recently, former President Ramnath Kovind committee was constituted to look into the feasibility of the one nation, one election principle. So, Kovind committee, it submitted its report. So, this committee also endorsed the principle of one nation, one election. So, mentioning this committee is at most important. Why? Because committee recently submitted its report in the year 2024. So it also endorsed the one nation, one election principle. So this is all about the various committees and their suggested reforms with respect to electoral reforms in India, and in particularly one nation, one election principle. Now we will briefly discuss what is one election, one nation, one election principle. So the principle advocates holding elections to the Lok Sabha and all the state assemblies simultaneously. Lok Sabha election, that is MP election, and the state assembly election, that is MLA election. The elections to these bodies, it should happen simultaneously. So the rationale behind this is bringing political stability, ensuring that the governance is not disrupted by frequent elections, and save enormous financial and administrative costs. Coming to the key benefits associated with one nation, one election principle, the first one is cost efficiency. Conducting simultaneous elections would significantly reduce the financial burden on the central government. The logistics involved in elections, including security, transportation, and manpower, would be streamlined. The second one is political stability. Simultaneous elections would ensure that the governments at the center and in the states complete their full terms. Frequent elections often result in policy paralysis due to the imposition of the model code of conduct. The third benefit is reduced disruption. Elections require massive deployment of security forces, be it CRPF, CISF, or police forces, or BSF forces. So, and administrative machinery. So this disrupts the normal governance. The simultaneous elections would reduce such disruptions and allow the governments to focus on development. Then the fourth one is voter turnout. Simultaneous elections may lead to higher voter turnout, as citizens would be required to vote only once in a 5 year rather than multiple times for different elections. Coming to the challenges associated with one nation, one election, the first one is constitutional amendments. So, implementing one nation, one election would require major constitutional changes, including amendments to Articles 83, Article 85, Article 172, 174, and 356. Then the second challenge is federal concerns. Critics argue that simultaneous elections undermine the autonomy of the states, as their electoral cycles would be synchronized with the central elections, potentially affecting the regional issues. Then the third one is logistic issues. Conducting elections for over 900 million voters. So there are 900 million voters in India. Conducting elections to these 900 million voters simultaneously across diverse regions would pose significant logistical challenges in terms of voter management, security, and administrative resources. Then the fourth challenge is political consensus. Achieving consensus among all political parties is difficult, especially since regional parties may fear losing their distinct political identity if state and central elections are held together. So these are the few challenges associated with one nation, one election. So coming to the conclusion, so in the conclusion, we should mention that one nation, one election principle is a vital to improving the efficiency and transparency of India's electoral process. While there are significant benefits, including cost efficiency and political stability, challenges such as constitutional amendments, logistical difficulties, and federal concerns must be carefully addressed. So by writing this, we should conclude our answer. Now we will discuss second question. Explain and distinguish between Lok Adalats and arbitration tribunals. The question is asking to differentiate between Lok Adalat and arbitration tribunals. And in the second part, the question is asking whether they entertain civil as well as criminal cases. So the question has two parts. In the first part, it is asking the difference between Lok Adalats and arbitration tribunals. And in the second part, it is asking whether these bodies like Lok Adalats and arbitration tribunals, they entertain civil as well as criminal cases or not. So we should address both the parts. So the question is for 10 marks and word limit is 150 words. Coming to the answer approach discussion, we have to begin our answer by writing an introduction. In the introduction, we should write that Lok Adalats and arbitration tribunals are two alternative dispute resolution mechanisms in India. They aimed at reducing the burden on regular courts and providing quick and cost-effective justice. So, as we all know that Lok Adalats and arbitration tribunals are alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. So, their main purpose or aim is to reduce the burden on regular courts and providing quick and cost-effective justice. So, this we should write in the introduction. So after writing introduction, we should distinguish between the Lok Adalats and arbitration tribunals. So the difference between Lok Adalats and arbitration tribunals are as follows. The nature of process. Lok Adalats, it is informal, based on compromise and mutual settlement. Whereas for arbitration tribunals, it is formal, based on legal arguments and adjudication. The presiding authority in the Lok Adalats is legal experts, judges, and social workers, whereas in case of arbitration tribunals, they are chosen by parties, often legal experts. Jurisdiction. Lok Adalats, it has jurisdiction on both civil cases and compoundable criminal cases, whereas arbitration tribunal, primarily it is with respect to civil disputes, that is commercial and contractual. So with respect to criminal cases, Lok Adalats, they entertain only compoundable criminal cases, whereas the arbitration tribunals, they have no jurisdiction over criminal cases. The binding nature of the awards. The awards are binding in the Lok Adalats and they have the status of court decrees. And coming to arbitration tribunals, the awards are binding and enforceable in the courts. With respect to appeal mechanism, no appeal against the decision of the Lok Sabha, whereas in the arbitration tribunals, the arbitral awards can be challenged on the limited grounds. It means if Lok Adalats gives any judgment or any decree, then that is the final. It cannot be challenged in any court. Whereas in arbitration tribunals, the awards can be challenged on limited grounds. This can be challenged in Supreme Court or High Courts. Coming to the cost involved, it is free and there will be some nominal charges and it is cost efficient. Whereas arbitration tribunals, it is expensive due to fees for arbitrators and legal processes. Coming to the objective, so here the objective is to amicable resolution through compromise, whereas in arbitration tribunals, it is formal adjudication through neutral arbitrators. So these are the detailed difference between Lok Adalat and arbitration tribunals. So if we write these points, so this is more than enough to address the first part. Even we have addressed the second part of the question, that is whether they entertain criminal cases and civil cases also. So we have discussed the Lok Adalat jurisdiction. It has both civil cases and compoundable criminal cases. And arbitration tribunals, they are primarily deal with civil disputes, especially commercial and contractual. So this is all about the answer approach to the second question. So in the conclusion, we should write the Lok Adalats, with their informal structure, are more accessible to the common public and handle a variety of civil and compoundable criminal cases. In contrast, the arbitration tribunals focus on civil disputes, particularly those related to commercial and contractual matters, and follow a more formal and structured approach. So, by writing this, we should conclude our answer. Now we will discuss the question number 3. That is, growth of cabinet system has practically resulted in the marginalization of the parliamentary supremacy. Elucidate. So the question is a single part. So it is asking the impact of the growth of cabinet system on the supremacy of the parliament. So the parliament, it has been tasked with controlling the executive, that is a union council of ministers. So whether this cabinet system, is it practically marginalizing the supremacy of the parliament or not, that we should explain. So in the introduction, we should define the parliamentary democracy. That is, the Westminster model of parliamentary democracy adopted by India is premised on the idea of parliamentary supremacy, where the parliament holds the highest authority in lawmaking, representing the will of the people. So this we should write as an introduction. Then we should move to the explaining the growth of cabinet system. So the concept of cabinet system, we should briefly write that cabinet system in parliamentary democracy consists of a group of senior ministers headed by the prime minister who hold executive power and are responsible for government policies. This cabinet system, it is the driving force of governance, formulating policies and proposing legislation and executive decisions. So over time, coming to the growth of cabinet power, over the period of time, especially in modern democracies like India and the United Kingdom, the cabinet has expanded its influence, increasingly controlling legislative functions and marginalizing the role of the wider parliament. The cabinet has become the dominant player in shaping policy, formulating legislation, and controlling the agenda of parliamentary proceedings, reducing the deliberative role of the legislature. And the prime minister has a dominating power in the cabinet system. He is the head of the cabinet and has assumed the greater powers, becoming the central figure in decision making. This has further consolidated the power within the cabinet. Often it is referred as prime ministerial government. So the parliament government, it is also called as prime ministerial government because of this reason. Now we will look into the marginalization of the parliamentary supremacy. So whether the cabinet system, whether it is marginalizing the parliamentary supremacy or not. So the first one is control over legislation. The cabinet system, through its majority in the parliament via council of ministers, effectively controls the legislative process. Most legislation is often drafted by the cabinet and presented to the parliament for approval, making the parliament more of a rubber stamp body than deliberative institution. So when any party it gets majority, then other than coalition government, if any party it gets majority, then the cabinet it acquires the it becomes stronger, it acquires more power, and it dominates the parliament over legislative process because of the majority of the ruling party in the parliament. Then the second point is party discipline and whip system. The system of party discipline and the use of whip ensure that MPs, particularly those from the ruling party, vote according to the party line, which is set by the cabinet. Then the third point is control over parliamentary agenda. The government, particularly through the leader of the house, controls the parliamentary timetable. The ruling party decides the agenda and the time allocated for debate on various issues, limiting the opportunities for opposition parties and backbench MPs to raise the issues of public concern. Then the fourth point is executive dominance in the committees. Parliamentary committees, which are essential for scrutinizing legislation, have also come under the influence of cabinet. Ministers or ruling party members often chair key committees, limiting their effectiveness in holding the government accountable. Then the fifth point is ordinances and executive orders. The increasing use of ordinances by the president on the advice of the cabinet when the parliament is not in session reflects the growing dominance of the executive, especially the cabinet. Now we will discuss the reasons for the marginalization of the parliamentary supremacy. The first one is majoritarian government, that is a single party having simple majority in the Lok Sabha. This ensures a strong cabinet. So the second point is lack of strong opposition. A weak or fragmented opposition limits the ability of the parliament to effectively challenge and scrutinize the government. Then the third one is electoral and party system. The first past the post electoral system tends to produce strong majorities even with a minority vote share. This often leads to a situation where ruling party with a strong presence in the cabinet dominates the parliament. Then the fourth point is media and public perception. Media often focuses on cabinet and the prime minister, sidelining the parliament in the public discourse. This leads to the perception that cabinet, particularly the prime minister, is the sole driver of governance, further marginalizing the legislative body. So, coming to the implications of marginalization of parliamentary supremacy. So, the first one is weakened deliberative role of the parliament. As Parliament's legislative and deliberative functions weaken, public policy formulated without thorough discussion and debate can lead to poorly framed laws and decisions that may not fully consider public welfare or long-term impact. Then the second implication is reduced accountability. When Parliament is marginalized, its role in holding the executive accountable is diminished. This can lead to the unchecked executive power, corruption, and poor governance, as the cabinet operates with limited oversight. Then the third implication is undermining the democratic values. In a democracy, parliamentary represents the will of the people. Marginalizing parliament erodes the democratic principles as decision making becomes concentrated in the hands of a few, sidelining the broader representation of diverse public interests. Then the fourth implication is executive overreach. When the cabinet dominates the parliamentary process, it increases the likelihood of executive overreach, where the decisions are made without the adequate checks. This can result in drift towards the authoritarianism, that the cabinet authoritarianism, where the balance between the legislative and executive branches is skewed towards the executive branch. So, coming to the conclusion, in the conclusion, we should write that the growth of cabinet system with its consolidation of power within a small group of ministers and prime minister has indeed marginalized the parliamentary supremacy. While parliament retains the formal authority, its effective control over legislation, policy deliberation, and executive oversight has weakened over the years. So this is all about answer approach to the question number 3. Now we will discuss the question number 4. The question number 4 is on Controller and Auditor General. So the question is, the duty of Controller and Auditor General is not merely to ensure legality of the expenditure, but also its propriety. Comment. So the directive word is comment. So we should address the both sides of the question. That is, the CAG, it ensures the legality of the expenditure and also it ensures the propriety of the expenditure. So we should address both the parts. The question is for 10 marks and the word limit is 150. In the introduction, we should write the importance or the role of the CAG. That is, the Controller and Auditor General of India plays a pivotal role in maintaining the accountability of the executive to the parliament and ensuring financial transparency in the management of public funds. So this we should write as an introduction. Then we should briefly mention the role of the CAG. Coming to the constitutional mandate, the office of the CAG is established under Article 148 of the Constitution. The CAG is an independent authority whose role is to audit the government accounts and ensure that the funds approved by the legislature are spent as intended. So the primary functions, the first one is audit of receipts and expenditure of the government, including that of state governments, public sector undertakings, and other bodies financed by the government. Then the second function is reporting to the parliament. The CAG submits audit reports to the president, who places them before the parliament. The next role is ensuring legality. That is, ensuring the legality of the expenditure means that the government spending must be strictly adhered to the provisions of the constitution, the prevailing laws and regulations. Now we will briefly discuss the difference between legal audit and proprietary audit. So the focus of the legal audit is it ensures that the expenditure conforms to the legal provisions, rules and regulations, whereas the proprietary audit it examines whether the expenditure is reasonable, prudent and in the public interest or not. Coming to the scope, the legal audit its scope is limited to the legal compliance of the financial transactions, whereas the proprietary audit it has a broader scope. It includes questions of morality, efficiency, and value for money. Examples of examples for legal auditor whether the expenditure is authorized by law and within the budgetary limits or not. Whether we have an example for proprietary audit whether the expenditure is necessary, justifiable, or in the non-extravagant. It means the expenditure should not be done unnecessarily. Then the key objective of the legal audit is it ensures that no money is spent illegally or unauthorized. Whereas the key objective of the proprietary audit is it ensures that public funds are used economically for valid purposes. So coming to the importance of the proprietary audit in public expenditure, the first one is it ensures efficient use of public funds. It prevents the waste and extravaganza in public expenditure, that is unnecessary expenditure. Then the third one is it ensures accountability and ethical governance. And the fourth one is CAG as the guardian of public interest. That is, the proprietary audit ensures that CAG is the guardian of the public interest. It means the public funds are used with efficient, without any waste and unnecessary expenditure, and with accountability and ethical governance. So, coming to the challenges in implementing proprietary audits, the first one is subjectivity in judgment. So, propriety involves a degree of subjectivity, while legality can be judged by clear rules and regulations. So, this creates a subjectivity in judgments. Then, the second one is resistance from the executive. The CAG's observations on propriety can sometimes face resistance from the executive, particularly when it involves criticism of policy decisions. Then the third is complexity of modern governance. With the increasing complexity of government functions, large scale projects, it becomes more challenging for the CAG to ensure both legality and propriety. So after writing challenges, we should write conclusion. In the conclusion, we should write that the duty of the CAG of India is not limited to ensuring the legality of the government expenditure. It extends to ensuring their propriety also. Coming to the question number 5, analyze the role of local bodies in providing good governance at the local level and bring out the pros and cons of merging the rural local bodies with the urban local bodies. So the question has two parts. In the first part, it is asking about the role of local bodies in providing good governance at the local level. And in the second part, it is asking the pros and cons, that is advantages and disadvantages of merging the rural local bodies with the urban local bodies. So the question is for 10 marks and the word limit is 150. So in the introduction, we should write about the local bodies, that is Panchayat Raj institutions and municipalities. Local bodies in India consist of Panchayat Raj institutions in rural areas and municipalities in urban areas. They play a critical role in ensuring good governance at the grassroots level. They are vital components of decentralized governance, ensuring that the needs and aspirations of local populations are addressed through participatory decision making. The 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments empower the rural and urban local bodies with constitutional status, providing them with greater autonomy to promote development and good governance. Now we will discuss the answer for first part of the question, that is role of local bodies in providing good governance. First one is decentralized decision making. Local bodies promote decentralization, allowing decisions to be made closer to the people. This enhances their responsiveness, accountability, and the governance. It also ensures that local issues such as water supply, sanitation, infrastructure, and education are addressed in a timely manner. Then the second one is service delivery and development. Local bodies are responsible for delivering essential services such as healthcare, education, public works, and infrastructure development. They also play a crucial role in implementing central and state government schemes like Swachh Bharat Mission, Narega, Smart Cities Mission, and Amrut Mission. Then the third importance is accountability and transparency. By involving citizens directly in the governance process through mechanisms like Gram Sabhas and ward committees, local bodies increase accountability and transparency. Then the fourth role is fostering participatory governance. Local bodies encourage participatory governance where the community is involved in the decision making process. The concept of Swaraj, as envisaged by Mahatma Gandhi, becomes a reality through empowered local governance. And programs like social audits and citizen report cards help assess the performance of local bodies, fostering a culture of accountability. Then the fifth role is addressing local issues and customization of policies. Local bodies are better equipped to understand the unique challenges of their communities, whether it is managing agricultural issues in rural areas or urban planning in cities. Local bodies can customize solutions that are tailored to meet specific local needs, making governance more effective. The sixth role is promoting social justice. Local bodies provide a platform for marginalized sections, including women, scheduled caste, and scheduled tribes, to participate in governance through reserved seats in local elections. This helps to promote inclusive development and social justice at the grassroots levels. Now we will address the pros of merging rural local bodies with the urban local bodies. The first one is efficient resource allocation. Merging rural and urban local bodies can lead to more efficient allocation of resources, especially in areas experiencing rapid peri-urbanization. The shared resources could improve the access to infrastructure, water supply, transport, and sanitation in the extended peri-urban areas, leading to balanced development of both rural and urban areas. The second pro is the second advantage or benefit is holistic development and planning. The merger of rural and urban local bodies would allow for integrated planning, taking into account both urban and rural needs in the same region. This would reduce the urban rural divide and it allows for a more comprehensive approach to governance, addressing issues like land use, transportation, and housing more effectively. The third benefit is enhanced service delivery. Unified local bodies can streamline service delivery, ensuring that the citizens in peri-urban and rural areas have equal access to essential services like healthcare, education, and transportation, which are typically more advanced in urban areas. This will also help in addressing the problems of urban sprawl and ensure better planning for roads, public transport, and utilities in areas transitioning from rural to urban. Then the fourth benefit is reduced administrative overlap. Merging local bodies can eliminate the duplication of administrative functions and reduce the bureaucratic burden by combining resources, expertise, and manpower. The fifth benefit is unified governance structure. A single governance framework for both urban and rural areas could lead to the better coordination in the execution of central and state government schemes, improving implementation efficiency. Then the disadvantages of merging rural local bodies with urban local bodies are as follows. The first one is loss of local identity. Rural areas have a different cultural, economic, and social characteristics compared to urban regions. Merging the two could result in the erosion of rural identity, as the needs and aspirations of rural populations may be overshadowed by the urban centric policies. Then the second disadvantage is different governance needs. Urban and rural areas have a distinct governance challenges. Urban areas require advanced infrastructure, urban planning, and waste management, while rural areas focus on agriculture development, irrigation, and rural employment. A merger might lead to mismatch of priorities where rural areas could be neglected in favor of urban development. The third disadvantage is risk of urban dominance. Merging rural local bodies with urban ones may lead to a situation where urban interests dominate, as cities tend to have a larger populations, more resources, and greater political influence. This could result in rural areas being underrepresented and underfunded. The fourth disadvantage is administrative challenges. Merging rural and urban local bodies could create a significant administrative challenges, including the reorganization of governance structures, integration of different bureaucratic systems, and coordination of development plans that cater to the widely varying needs. Then the fifth disadvantage is complicated financial management. Urban and rural local bodies have a different sources of revenue and spending patterns. A merger could complicate financial management and resource distribution, making it difficult to allocate funds equitably. So these are all the disadvantages of merging rural local bodies with the urban local bodies. Coming to the conclusion, so we should write in the conclusion: local bodies play an essential role in providing good governance at the grassroots levels by ensuring decentralized decision making, promoting accountability, and delivering essential services. While merging rural and urban local bodies could lead to more efficient governance and balanced development in peri-urban areas, it also carries the risk of diluting the distinct identities and needs of rural communities. A balanced approach is necessary where rural and urban local bodies can collaborate on shared challenges while maintaining their distinct governance structure to address their unique needs. So, this is all about GS2 paper, question number 1 to question number 5, answer approach. So, this is a part 1 video. In the part 2 video, we are coming up with question number 6 to question number 10, answer approach. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Till then, happy learning.